the empty valley, they built a giant, and they gave it the name of a giant in Greek mythology, Titan.
Welcome to Nuclear Bunker Living. It's Nick. Today I want to share with you a captivating story that just really needed to be told. I'm honoured to have Thomas Baker at the Titan complex for his very first time, and I'll be interviewing him. Thomas is the youngest son of Donald E. Baker, who alongside three others tragically died in 1961 at the Titan when the 116-ton silo door slammed shut on them while they were working underneath it. You do not want to miss this fascinating and remarkable story. Thomas, been some time, my friend. Like I said, you have a phenomenal story, and I want to basically this story needs to be amplified and needs to be told. And obviously, right now we are in a Titan 1, and
this is so cool.
Yeah,
this is amazingly awesome what you're doing.
and you have such a remarkable story, and your story is so emotionally linked to a Titan 1.
Oh, absolutely.
And I got to find out about your particular story through the ownership of a Titan 1.
Yeah.
And, your story is like, what happened was incredibly traumatic. I mean, it's just, this emotional upheaval. But, it's I guess, the father and the background story to, he's the original atomic test in Nevada, for example, to then 9 years later working in the Titan 1. And just, there is so much in this story. We're going to basically unpack this on this particular episode of Nuclear Bunker Living. So, like I said, this story just had to be told, and I feel honoured and privileged to...
I'm glad that it's being told, because the whole story of the Titan 1 and just the whole Cold War with this, this Titan 1 was the epicenter of the Cold War.
Yeah, it was the first generation.
The accident that my dad was killed in was at the epicenter of the epicenter because of what happened. And the more that I studied and I researched and I found out, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I could not believe that it's not that I'm involved in history, but it's part of history.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I'm so glad to be able to see documented.
Yeah. And for the viewers of the channel, and I want to pre-frame this, Thomas's father was Donald, and Donald died here at the Titan 1. He was a pipe fitter. He died in August 7th of 1961. It was a very tumultuous day. There were actually 4 deaths and about 8 injuries.
Yeah.
And we're going to share the actual details, what transpired that particular day, but also I want to share the story of your dad, like 9 years prior to being at ground zero at a 31 kiloton atomic the site in Nevada during the atomic bomb sites, for example. During Operation Thunder Snapper, was it?
Yes.
And that was on April 22nd in 1952, and that was during the height of the Korean War at the same time too. And also it was a Cold War with the Soviets, and it was a race to produce these weapons of mass destruction, these thermonuclear bombs or whatever too. It was just an incredible point. It was an amazing time in history, obviously, kind of thing. Yeah. So let's have a look at this. There's so much to start with, but this is your father. This is Donald Baker.
Correct.
So Donald was what, about, was age 20, 21 here, would you say?
He was 19, 20,
Yeah. So Dad was part of Operation Thunder Snapper, and that was the atomic blast that were in Nevada, okay? So, correct. And on that particular mission, on that operation, should I say, there was about 7 different blasts, were there? 7 different tests?
Yeah, it did, yeah.
And so your dad was 19, he was a young GI,
Yeah.
It was 19. So one of the blasts, it was a 31 kiloton. Now, it's crazy to think about 31 kiloton, where the destructive power of the Titan 1 missile was 4.5 megaton, you know?
Oh, yeah. He saw a pop gun go off.
Yeah.
Compared to the Titan. Yeah. Yeah.
So now, this is 1952, your dad was 19, so it was basically an airburst detonation. It was about 3,500 feet in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And effectively, your dad, within minutes, so what was he mandated to do? Was he out there with a Geiger counter? He obviously didn't have any equipment on.
Well, the safety measures that they had was, okay, button up and, roll your sleeves down. There was little to no protection with this. And they had gas masks on their side. For new players, well, okay, that makes sense. But after the blast, the people with the Geiger counters went in there, and about an hour after the blast, they then went and visited some of the equipment and animals. They saw a lot of destruction. I mean, they saw rattlesnakes. They were blinded because of the flash. They were just striking at sound.
Yeah.
Because it was just surreal.
I also read that they had a whole bunch of animals, cows and horses, with some rope, with a stake in the ground, and to see what would happen to the actual flesh of an animal, for example. And then they had helicopters with snipers and helicopters shooting the animals at the very, very end after the detonation kind of thing. Just crazy amount of tests. So your dad basically, upon impact, just burst, detonated, and then within minutes, your dad is literally out there at ground zero at the epicenter of the blast. And he's out there doing some tests and what have you.
Yeah. Now.
At 19 years of age.
Correct. Now, the thing that's important to understand about the Charlie shot that he was at was all of the shots that have been. Now, this was the 27th nuclear detonation by America. We've detonated over 1,000 nuclear weapons.
Well into the 60s and the 70s, absolutely.
The detonations before that, the soldiers that were in the trenches were like 6 or 7 miles away from ground zero. This is the first test. Then he was 2.5 miles from ground zero. So it was like they were even arguing whether or not they should be, because if they didn't drop the bomb in the right place, they could have killed the soldiers.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they were just playing with fire.
So I want to read a letter that your father wrote to your mum during the atomic blast. And so this is your mother, Carol. Right?
Yeah. Now this is the picture that my mom, the first picture that she sent of herself to my father, because the salutation on there is like a greeting to my father.
Absolutely, definitely.
Yeah.
So this is what your father wrote to your mum, Carol, over here, right? So your father's about 19 at the time. He goes, I was among the GIs who went 3.5 miles from ground zero. It was an experience I'll never forget. Believe me, I'll try to give you an explanation of the atomic bomb. We were dug in 3.5 miles from ground zero, entrenched about 4.5 feet deep. During the last 2 minutes, the radio was cut in on the B-50 that came down in the countdown, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bomb away. Then a silence I can't explain. I had a more-filled equipment, helmet and covering for my eyes. I had my face in my lap with a pair of leather gloves over my eyes, yet I saw the flash. Then 3 seconds came the initial blast wave and dirt was blown into the foxhole. The blast wave returned to the explosion area and rushed over. Then the most horrid, wicked thunder followed like a million rain thunders in one. The ground began to tremble with a continuing rumble. I rose up out of my shelter and saw the greatest, most powerful sight in the history of mankind. The fireball, dark orange, was rising upward. The whole valley below me was in an uproar. Then the ball formed a giant ring going up 35,000 feet into the heavens. It almost took an hour for the valley to clear up. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at that time, the thing that was so unique about the shop that he was at was this was open to the public. All the other ones prior to that, the servicemen had to sign a document saying they would not discuss anything with us. And here my dad wrote this letter because they were encouraged to be able to communicate this, because this is the first event ever televised nationally.
So it's televised live on national TV?
Yes, yes. You know, I have friends out in LA that I've talked to about it. They said, yeah, I remember watching that.
And mind you, probably about 150 miles away, people were in Las Vegas gambling at the same time.
Yeah, and that technology was not there. Actually, the ABC, NBC, those big companies didn't take the. They were afraid of the technology to go national because they didn't want to lose face.
No, absolutely.
So it was just a local company out of LA that did it, and it changed the world.
So your dad was somewhat of a wordsmith. He wrote a lot of letters. So he wrote how many letters? About 45 to your mother?
42. Yeah.
42. So these are the actual letters your father wrote to mom.
Yeah, and there's some that my mom also wrote back, but 28 of these 42 letters my dad wrote to my mother before they ever met.
Wow, that's incredible.
So it's like,
and the fact that you still have these, I think it's a wonderful collection of you. So they married a couple of years after that, and they had obviously there were 6 children. I do understand there was two older brothers who died a few days after birth.
Correct.
Then there was your older brother John. Then there was Joe. Then there was Mary, and then there was you. So that's
correct.
So that's John. That's Joe. That's Mary, and that's you, the youngest.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Way there. Yeah.
So was this around the period of time where your dad passed away? Was this?
I think it was
because you were 1 year and 8 months old, right? At that point.
I think it was probably taken within the year after he died, because my mom did a lot of things to be able to make sure we stayed together as a family.
No, absolutely.
So.
And this is the only photo you have in color?
Yeah.
Okay, there's your dad.
That's the only
there's
picture.
John, there's Mary, there's
my dad.
And this is, I believe you were living in Thornton, Colorado, right?
Correct. We were living in Thornton.
Thornton, Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay. So your dad left the military.
Yeah.
He then became a pipe fitter, right? He was part of the local union 208.
Yeah.
That's the plaque over here. So your dad was he was a foreman at that particular point, and
correct.
He was Morrison, Knudsen and Associates, basically hired your father. Now this is so we've gone from the early atomic test back in 1952, and then around 1961, your father was working as an additional contractor to Morrison, Knudsen and Associates.
Correct. Which he started working on the diet sometime in the end of 59, beginning of 60.
Okay.
I don't know the exact date.
Yeah. In fact, your father was a significant pipe fitter that even Morrison, Knudsen and Associates were willing to relocate the entire family to the Washington site, flying Titans to work on those.
My dad was a craftsman. He had gone back to Indiana to represent Colorado in a national pipe fitters competition. He was good.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been proud of my dad, not just because he's there, but he had to be good.
No, absolutely. And the military contracts were out there. I mean, like I said, the Titan ones, there was a $1.8 billion development. I mean, way over budget. And obviously, they were in a rush to complete them as soon as possible because it was the Cold War and they were competing against the Soviets and whatever too.
Yeah.
So what sort of fascinates me was the period of time now we're looking at 1961. Now, your father at the time was working, 60 hours a week, 6 days a week, 10-hour shifts.
Yeah.
And, it took about 2.5 years to build each particular Titan. And they were in a rush. I mean, it was just an extensive workforce.
It was at the speed of combat. That's how it was described. Because from the time that they put the shovel in the ground to break ground to the time they had to have missiles pointed at the Soviet Union, ready to go, was 2 months, was 2 years, 3 months and 4 days to be able to do something with technology that wasn't even developed.
Yeah, it was like,
and it was insane.
the whole thing was basically not ad hoc. I mean, it was like there were new plans being drawn up, during the construction process and the development phase.
Absolutely. The site that my father was killed at, actually the site 724A, was twice as expensive because that's where, when there was a change being made, it was put into place there, made sure it worked. Then they would take the changes, and so it would be less expensive that way. So the site, the 724A, cost twice as much as all the other sites. And, it was located close to Buckley, close to Denver, easy access for transportation hub. So, I can understand why.
So let's talk about the events that transpired on August 7th, 1961 over here.
Yeah.
So Dad was, unfortunately, Dad was among 3 other individuals who passed away that particular day.
Correct.
There was 4 dead in total, and about 8 injured. Explain exactly what happened. This was silo 2, and obviously there was a hydraulic failure, but from what you know, what exactly transpired?
Okay, well, I got a copy of the accident report.
Yeah.
And what it really said was, and because this technology was so new, they had done on silo 1, it was kind of like a bleeding off of hydraulic fluid with this, and then replacing it. They wrote how to be able to do it the day before my dad died.
Yeah.
Okay, they went to the other silo to be able to do it with a brand new process with this. But the thing that they didn't do was, after they bled it off, they left out replacing 30 to 50 gallons of hydraulic fluid.
Yeah.
So when the door, there's a actuating cylinders that push this way and keep it this way. Okay. So the pressures, the downside with it, there was the air, so there was nothing to hold it back, so it went slowly over top dead center.
Yeah.
And when
The dying its own inertia, just because of the weight. I mean, we're talking about 116-ton blast doors over here.
Yeah.
So what happened was, unfortunately, your father and 3 other individuals, the silo door slammed shut on them.
Correct.
And this is the original accident report. Some of it has actually been redacted by the military, but we've also got the actual pictures of the actual. And we'll get a couple of close-ups here, but the actual videos.
Yeah. Now the thing is with those pictures, there's about 60 pictures that the Air Force has not sent to me.
Okay.
Because they say that it, even still today, they say that it's too sensitive.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and this is through the Freedom of Information Act.
yeah,
Right?
it's, I explained to them, it's like, I just want the information. I want to see all the pictures.
I can see the actual site here, the post examination here. You can see the crack and also the replacement of the silo doors. I mean, in this particular photo, you can see they removed the silo door already.
Yeah.
And this particular photo will be taken from a helicopter.
Yeah.
But this is so we'll get this documented up. So so your father, this was 1961. This is August 7th, and obviously there was was a media fanfare. There was a lot of reporting, a lot of the newspapers regionally and also across the United States.
Well, yeah,
documented something that happened at a Titan missile site. And
well, the thing is about the 724 series with the A, B, and C, he was killed at A. We're in C right now with it. But the A site, because it was the high priority, it was in national news because it was to be the first ICBM of the Titan missile system to be pointed at the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War.
Yeah.
This was everybody because of the perceived missile gap. There was a frenzy going on.
No, absolutely, definitely. I mean, like the construction site was a 24/7 site.
Oh yeah,
definitely. My question to you was this: was Dad only at 1A or was he here at 1C as well?
You know.
Because more than likely, because 1A, 1B, and 1C, it's a very we're talking about like only a few miles apart.
Yeah, I don't know. My mom didn't know because my dad never talked about what was going on because he couldn't.
Yeah, and obviously, but I would say more than likely, because 1A, 1B, and 1C were basically built around the same time and would have shared the same working personnel, whatever, too. So more than likely, your dad had spent time here in this facility as well, too.
Yeah, I imagine that he
more than likely, absolutely,
he was, and because he wasn't going to be going up to Washington to help manufacture, to help construction up there. It made more sense that the more visibility he has, the better trained he is of knowing.
No, totally, because Morrison, Knudsen and Associates had the same contract for the 3 missile bases kind of thing. So they would have used the same personnel. This is quite fascinating. This is the actual pay slip. So your dad was actually earning $4.77 per hour. Yeah. And the day that he passed away, I mean, that particular week, he had generated, his salary was $282 a week, 50 hours and then 10 hours overtime on top of that. So obviously they were pushing the men, they were pushing the other workers, whatever. Yeah. I mean, 10 hours overtime, over 50 hours, over about 62 hours a week he was working.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you can see how it accents what happened to specifically with new systems, that are basically being developed at the same time, in real time, that is, So.
Yeah. Well, there was obviously not the concern for safety back then as it was, because the safety feature to be able to hold the door back with this, they had cables that they hooked to the door. This is like putting a spider web in front of a Mack truck and expecting it to stop. Well, after the accident, they put I-beams up there.
Yeah, on the sides to keep the doors there.
To be, you bolted
that would mount the doors as an additional redundancy.
And the guy in the Air Force that actually at 724A secured them, he told me, he says, oh no, that modification was done after the accident, not before. And the Air Force tried to be able to say it was done before, and it's like, the accident wouldn't have.
It's interesting because there was another death here, and we spoke about this before, because this is obviously your first time in a Titan 1 on the ground, that is. And I showed you where one of the engineers back in '62, he fell down the original entrance, which is kind of like a gopher entrance, and had a spiral staircase. He slipped all the way down to the bottom and had his head crushed by the entrapment doors, the entrapment area. And then they had to basically build an entire new entrance. Yeah. On the fly, it was all completely ad hoc.
That was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Seeing that,
this is really incredible when you talk about this. So your father was buried about a week later, and before he was even buried, your mother was somewhat disillusioned with the insensitivity with the bullet sheet. They sent the termination slip. This is the pink slip.
Yeah.
Literally days after your father passed away.
Through the years, my mother, there was only one thing about everything that happened with my father dying that she was really upset with. And that was that pink slip. Because it was like, how insensitive. How rude can
There was a
you
motion disconnect there. They're specifically saying, hey, the pink slip that says here, died, workplace injury. This is what it actually says.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. You know, you know, that to me is really kind of the closure with some of the things with this. But one of the things I would like to say is, if anybody that is watching this video understands how to be able to get a FOIA request through, not telling me to do it. I've done it before and it didn't work, but somebody who's been successful at a FOIA, I would gladly take the information and go with it, because I also want all the statements of people that were around the accident. I'm not afraid of it being gruesome. I know it was gruesome.
yeah.
Didn't
No,
it?
the family needs to know, definitely. Okay, so your mother got a telegram of condolence from the Secretary of Labour, and his name was Arthur J. Goldberg.
Yeah.
And he's, a few days after the passing of your father, he read as follows: "May I express my sincere condolences of the death of Mr. Donald Baker. I would only hope that it may be of some consolation to you that he died in a performance of duty which was of highest importance to the nation and all the free world. You have my deepest sympathies."
Yeah, and I'm the only person that I know of that with the death of a parent that has gotten a telegram of condolence from a cabinet member.
Yeah.
You know, Kennedy knew what was going on. That's how important this was, because, he had promised that, we're going to do things, we're going to send men to the moon. Well, the Titan was the epicenter of the technology being developed that led into Gemini.
Yeah, and obviously with the Titan, when I built, there was a lot of controversy because there was a union strike. The steel workers had gone on strike, and then Kennedy had to step in and say, okay, by executive order, he basically put something out there to get everybody working in synergy, and he had to expedite it because there was a timeline. It was a very strict timeline because the Titan had to be operational by early 1962. In fact, if it didn't, the Cuban Missile Crisis was in 1962. And his particular Titan, as well as 1A and 1B, missiles were raised, and they were on DEFCON 2.
Yeah.
As one of our friends, was it Dr. Joel Levitz?
Yeah.
And I did speak to Joel Levitz, by the way, and also, he didn't know your father, but he was actually at the workplace the same day, August 7, 1961. In fact, when your father and three other gentlemen, when they were working just underneath the actual silo doors before it actually slammed on him, Joel happened to just walk away for a brief moment.
Yeah. Yeah, he had just come up out of the side.
For the same spot where my father was.
Yeah.
He had walked away and literally said there was like a seismic shift in the ground. The entire place, the complex had reverberated. You got a 116-ton door slamming shut, and literally he was just seconds away from that particular.
Yeah, yeah, and there's another man that I met online that his father was a union electrician at the site also, and he was looking right at the accident when it happened, and he said his dad never got over it because he said it was not easy, but it's part of history. It's part of history.
Yeah. If I can pivot to, obviously, so this is, you were about, 1 year, 8 months old, right?
Correct.
Mary was about 2.5, I imagine.
Correct.
John would have been about 6.
Yeah, he was 6. Yeah.
Joe would have been about just 4.
Yeah, we were all pretty close.
Yeah. I want to go back to your father's exposure, and obviously what he didn't know at the time was that during that era, April 22nd, 1952,
Yeah.
he was exposed to radiation.
Yeah.
He obviously didn't have the appropriate equipment, but he absorbed enough radiation, obviously, at that particular point in time. And then your father was 19 at the time.
Yeah.
Do you believe your father's exposure to radiation had implications biologically wise?
Okay, there is some controversy around that because the people in the medical profession have always said there's no way that could happen. I'm involved with a website about the children of atomic veterans, CAVs, which I'm one. All my brothers and sisters are. And they talk about health problems.
Yeah.
Continual health problems. But not only that, out of my family, out of 6 kids who were born, two died right after they were born.
2 after
3 have non-curable diseases. So 5 out of 6 of us. Do you know any families that have that much?
Thomas, let's discuss that. So, obviously, with your medical ailment, it's spinal cerebellar ataxia, right?
Correct.
And you're type 2.
Yeah.
Joe is was Lewy body dementia.
Yeah.
Mary is
Rheumatoid
arthritis. John, there was no ailments with John, correct?
No, he doesn't.
And John was the firstborn.
Correct.
Right. So at that particular point, and obviously your 2 older brothers, they died a few days after birth.
Correct.
For Carol at the time, for your mother at the time, I mean, this is, what was your mum thinking like? I mean, at this particular point, like, I mean, did your mother link it back to your father's exposure to radiation?
She did not.
On that fateful day, April 22nd, 1952.
My mother was very pragmatic from the standpoint. She grew up in the Depression. She grew up on a farm, okay? And she looked at it and says, you move on with life.
Yeah.
And that's the way she looked at it. She said, okay, 2 of my children are dead. Okay, that it wasn't anything that she correlated to that at all. And when I told her about that years later, probably about 7 or 8 years ago with this, she said, I never even considered that. And I said, there's serious illness in our family.
Yeah.
So,
But you believe, due to the direct exposure to the radiation,
yeah.
in 1952, that there was a level of gene alteration.
I believe so. That's me just because of my lived experience. And the thing is at the shop that my dad was at, that was the first time because I had it was the first shop that GIs, they actually went to ground zero at all with it. Most of the time they just kind of him and holograms and things. They marched to ground zero, then they marched back through. So it's like, if we're not going to get you once, we'll get you twice.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I truly believe that this story needed to be told. I mean, when I first heard it, I just said, it's just incredible. It's just, there are so many timelines, like, also it's like it's embedded within such an incredible past of like Cold War history.
Yeah.
From your dad in atomic tests, in Nevada to like working in a Titan I, which was the first generation at the forefront of the Cold War, I mean, there was so much, and just the family, the involvement, just the different emotions and the afflictions and the medical ailments, and it's like, I mean, just the way things had transpired and the turn of events, and from the pink slip to your father, working so many hours just to get these bases operational. I mean, it's just, it really is. It's an incredible story, Thomas.
Yeah. He was very proud to be a part of the Titan I construction, because it was, even though he was a civilian at the time, he looked at it as it was his opportunity to be able to serve his country. Because back then, it was a completely different one. You know, it's so hard to fathom now. But look at it with the construction of the Titan I and what happened in history, we will never, ever have another massive situation like this. You're taking technology, throwing it in the ground and hoping it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it is really hard for younger generation to be able to understand the absolute commitment.
Oh, the level of sacrifice. I mean, where your father, like working 60-hour weeks, just to get this place operational. So if you have DEFCON 2 at a moment, that actually happened about a year after his passing, kind of thing. Thomas, I want to show you. I want to take you to inside of the silo, where your father more than likely actually worked. So, with your permission, I would love to let's go to silo number 2 of the Titan I, and this would be your first first time ever kind of thing. So,
I have been looking so forward to this for my whole life. I never thought it would happen. But here we go.
No, I'd love to give you a personal tour, my friend. So let's do this.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'm so thankful I walked all those miles, so I can still walk and even do this, even though it's not just a stroll in the park.
Right.
That I'm able to even do this.
Okay.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Look at that. Look at that. There we go. Almost there. By the way, all these bolts, there's a ton of them here. Got you. Yep, that's good. My friend, long time coming, huh? Step up. I got you. Yep. Come over here. See this? You gotta hold on to that. You can come closer. And if you want to come on this side. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we're really happy to actually get you down here, man. Because I know when I was speaking to you in the car, it meant a lot to you to be down here, for sure.
The flag is safe. Okay. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time.
I didn't know what this moment would be like.
Yeah. So I mean, this has been. I'm sure this is something that you wanted to do for your whole life, being down in here.
Thomas, the silo is where your dad worked here, man. This is where your dad was. 50s. Yeah. Talking about, what is it now? Like 60 years ago.
61 years.
61 years ago.
Yeah.
Be proud of you, man.
And this moment would be like now that I'm here.
I mean, a room built for destruction, but yet it's a very magical room too. It's mesmerizing.
It is.
It's just another level, you know. I mean, they're your solid doors. I mean, each door's 116 ton. You know, that's where the actuators are over here, the hydraulic doors. I mean, you've got the catwalk here. Yeah, this is the silo. Yeah, different perspective on the inside. Yeah, to take it all in.